You are watching The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. We've got crucial updates lined up for you. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking at the moment. The European Union has adopted new visa rules that will allow frequent travelers from India to apply for multiple entry Schengen visas with longer validity, easing travel to 29 European countries. Nearly 66,000 Indians officially became American citizens in 2022, according to the latest congressional report. Rishi Sunak's Rwanda bill finally cleared Parliament after 8 hours of debate as MPs and peers sat through the night to pass the flagship legislation. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi has refused to join ranks with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif when the latter thanked him for supporting Pakistan's stand on Kashmir. Well, a big focus on the World 24/7. Under a new visa regime issued by the European Union, Indian nationals can now apply for a multiple entry Schengen visa with longer validity. The European Commission has introduced a new visa cascade regime for Indian nationals seeking Schengen visas, allowing for more straightforward access to multiple entry visas with extended validity periods. Now, this new regime, effective from the 18th of April, actually replaced the standard rules of the visa code and offers significant advantages for Indian travelers. The Schengen area, as you know, comprises 29 European countries that include 25 EU states as well. But what do these new rules mean for Indians? Well, Indian nationals residing in India can now be issued long-term, multi-entry Schengen visas valid for 2 years after lawfully obtaining and using 2 visas within the previous 3 years. Now, this initial 2-year visa can then be followed by a 5-year visa, provided the passport has sufficient validity remaining. This extended validity also allows travelers, by the way, to move freely within the Schengen area for short stays of up to 90 days within any 180-day period. In fact, Rahul Venkat, senior journalist, is joining us from Brussels. Thank you so much, Rahul Venkat, for joining us on NDTV, The World 24/7. We wanted clarity on the new regime. There are significant steps we know, but take our viewers through the exact changes, how the changes are being implemented, and whether there are any challenges in this process.
So up until now, getting a Schengen visa for an Indian national was always a bit of a toss-up. You either got a cut-to-cut visa for the exact number of days that you were required to be in Europe, or if you were lucky, something a bit longer. But now, what has changed because of this EU-India common agenda on migration and mobility is that Indian nationals with an established history of travel to the Schengen area can avail of longer-term Schengen visas of up to 2 years, followed by one of up to 5 years, provided your passport remains valid. Now, this EU-India high-level dialogue on migration and mobility began in 2006, was then signed in 2016, and it is now in mid-April 2024 that this cascade visa regimen has come into force. What this means is that Indian nationals will be able, in theory, to travel to Europe for 90 days every 180 days, giving them access to the 29 countries in the Schengen area. As always, the devil lies in the details. People from all across India will give you anecdotal evidence on how some countries tend to give Indian nationals longer visas and some countries are more strict. So now, how each EU member state interprets and then implements this new ruling remains to be seen. It will definitely help spark more people-to-people contact between the world's 2 largest democracies to try and unlock the potential of this partnership that has so far not lived up to its promise. For NDTV, this is Rahul Venkat in Brussels.
In other news, a total of 65,960 Indians officially became US citizens, making India the second largest source country for new citizens in America right after Mexico, according to the latest congressional report. Now, an estimated 46 million foreign-born persons resided in the United States in 2022, approximately 14% of the total US population of 333 million, according to American Community Survey data from the US Census Bureau. Here's my colleague Vishal Vivek's report shedding light on the data.
India is the second largest source country for new citizens in the US, with nearly 66,000 Indians becoming US citizens in 2022, according to a report by the independent Congressional Research Service. Mexico represents the largest number with about 1,29,000 naturalizations. The report also says that about 42% of India-born foreign nationals are not eligible to become US citizens. On the other hand, about 2,90,000 India-born foreign nationals who were on the green card were potentially eligible. Meanwhile, according to American Community Survey data from the US Census Bureau, an estimated 46 million foreign-born persons resided in the US in 2022, which is approximately 15% of the total US population of 333 million. The numbers seem to be big, but it is far from easy to become a US citizen these days. Let's take a look at this yearly data in the financial year 2023. There were over 4 lakh pending naturalizations in applications in the US. The year before, there were about 5.5 lakh pending applications. If we go as far back as 2020, it becomes clear that pendency has reduced, but a significant number of applications still need to be processed.
And for further clarity, joining us on NDTV at the moment, Soundarya Balasubramani. Thank you so much for joining us on the World 24/7. You know, with so many countries introducing new measures to curb immigration, is the US likely to see a massive influx of foreigners?
Yeah, so there's different ways to enter the US. And one of the popular ways is to enter the US for higher education. And in 2023, there were more than 1 million students, international students, who were studying in the US. And specifically, there were more than 250,000 students from India who were studying in the US higher education in 2023. And this has come to pre-pandemic levels right now. And in fact, there was a 35% increase in 2023. And so I guess my point is that this is not slowing down based on the last few years. And I suspect that we will keep seeing more and more students moving to the US for education, at least for the next few years. At the same time, there have been mass layoffs that happened in America over the last year and a half. And so a lot of international students they had to leave America and go back to their home country because they couldn't find a job within the time period that they had to. And so I do think we will see the impact of these mass layoffs and people leaving the country in a few years, and that having an impact on reducing the number of incoming students, because students may not look to America as a destination anymore. But at least for the next 3 to 5 years, I don't think it's going to slow down. And we will keep seeing an influx of international students and immigrants.
Well, why is India the second largest source country for new United States citizens? Are Indians preferred more when the US government awards citizenships?
I wouldn't say Indians are preferred more because they have a set list of checklists that you have to check to go from being a lawful permanent resident to being a citizen. At least that's how it should work. There shouldn't be any bias there. But in terms of why Indians are the second largest, this wasn't the case a few decades ago. Until 1965, there was very little immigration from India to America. But there was a very interesting thing that happened in 1965, where they abolished something called the national origin quota, which until then was giving preference to people from Europe. And so once that was abolished, and then we saw a tech boom happen, especially in the late 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of Indian immigrants, skilled immigrants, began to come to America to work in tech, STEM fields, to get themselves educated. And so I think this wasn't the case a few decades ago, but given the changes in laws, the rise of tech, the recent rise of AI as well, we will see more and more skilled Indian immigrants in America.
Well, Soundarya, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for providing the insight. Well, in other news, Rishi Sunak's Rwanda deportation bill will become law after opposition and crossbench peers backed down on Monday night, opening the way for legal battles over the potential removal of dozens of people that are seeking asylum. After a marathon battle of ping-pong over the key legislation between the Commons and the Lords, that bill finally passed when opposition and crossbench peers gave way on Monday night. But as the British Prime Minister forced Parliament to sit late into the night until the bill was finally passed, he promised there would be a regular rhythm of flights taking off over the summer to deter others from trying to cross the channel. But for the first time, he set out the extensive preparations that have already been made to get the first planes in the air within 10 to 12 weeks in what he said was one of the most complex operational endeavours the UK Home Office has carried out. Now, these include getting 200 officials in the UK ready to identify asylum seekers who will be served with removal directions in the coming days. In fact, this bill, believe it or not, it's expected to be granted royal assent on Tuesday, but this deal will cost £1.8 million for each of the first 300 deportees. This is what the UK National Audit Office has confirmed. This figure now isn't completely foreign, even though it's absolutely flabbergasting, because last month the British Parliament's spending watchdog had said that the British government's controversial plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda might end up costing more than £600 million to deport 300 refugees. Well, switching tracks, the prosecution in Donald Trump's hush money trial accused the former president of a criminal conspiracy and cover-up to hide a sex scandal ahead of the 2016 presidential election. It was election fraud, pure and simple. This is what a lawyer told the jury during the opening statements at the historic trial in New York. Setting out the case for the defense, Trump's lawyer said his client had committed no crimes and that it was not illegal to try to influence an election. Right, and joining us with an update from New York at the moment, William Denslow. Let's go across to him.
Opening statements, prosecutor Matthew Colangelo argued that Donald Trump had committed election fraud, pure and simple. The prosecution painted a narrative accusing Donald Trump of attempting to hide and prevent potentially politically damaging stories from making it public in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. The prosecution alleged that Donald Trump paid hush money to the porn star Stormy Daniels through a fixer in a bid to make that payment as hard as possible to discover. We heard from Todd Blanche, representing the defence during opening statements, arguing that the prosecutors laid out a neat narrative, but they said it's simply not true. Blanche adding that Donald Trump had committed no crimes. He said that even efforts to influence an election, there's nothing wrong with that, he argued. He said that is simply what democracy is. We've also had the first witness take the stand during this trial. That is David Pecker, who owned the firm that controlled the National Enquirer, who are accused of catching and killing potentially politically damaging stories about Donald Trump in the lead up to the 2016 election. He is expected back on the witness stand Tuesday. On Tuesday, there's also expected to be a hearing on Donald Trump's gag order that prosecutors allege that he has been violating. The gag order was put in place by Judge Juan Machan in an effort to prevent the former president from attacking witnesses during this trial. Prosecutors, they say that such violations of the order could result in fines or even up to 30 days behind bars. Donald Trump has said that this gag order is unconstitutional. He has railed again against the case as a whole. He says it is election interference, all in a bid to hurt his chance of regaining the White House come November. William Denslow, NDTV, New York.
And a special report lined up for you on the other side of this very short break of a Calcutta-born chef who ran a supper club in her home and now operates Darjeeling Express in London, Soho, with what she calls an all-women team of housewives. You don't want to miss this.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola,
India's best 5G smartphone brand.
Hello everyone. I urge each one of you to exercise your right to vote. Your voice matters and all our votes shape our collective future. Let us make democracy stronger by going out and exercising our franchise. Jai Hind.
The 18th Lok Sabha elections. As always, NDTV has its ear to the ground.
With the biggest pie of 80 seats, all eyes will be on Uttar Pradesh.
Will the Troika ensure the Modi umbrella unites all?
It is the first election in Naya Kashmir since the scrapping of Article 370.
Will the same number of lotuses bloom in the desert, or can Gehlot lend a helping hand to India?
With BJP having maxed here with the only pillar standing of Chhindwara fall.
Can Didi once again withstand the saffron tide?
Will BJP stay strong in its northeast bastion?
Jhadu ka jadoo or Modi magic? Can Congress gain lost ground in Punjab?
Will Revant Reddy be able to increase the Congress strength in Telangana this time? And in Andhra Pradesh, will the Jagannath be able to stop Chandrababu Naidu and Pavan Kalyan?
Can BJP win back its only stronghold in the south? Or will it be a Congress consolidation?
Can BJP make a dent in the Dravidian den?
I do hope all of you are going to go out and cast your vote, and especially the youth of the country. And the youth and the corporate citizens, people who work in our urban centers and companies. You know, we are the, in many ways, we actually are the generation which is going to build the country. So I do hope all of you get out and vote. It is not just our responsibility, but it's also our core participation in building the future country of our dreams. And I am today pledging to vote.
Welcome back. Escalating tensions between Iran and Israel has once again put the spotlight on West Asia. And the biggest question is, who are the real players in West Asia? Here's a detailed explainer for you.
West Asia is one of the most vital geographies in the world. Not just because it holds the key to the energy security of most of the world, but also because of its religious and cultural importance. And escalating tensions between Iran and Israel has once again put the spotlight on this region, with the biggest question being, who are the real players in West Asia? Let's decode. Historically, West Asia has been of enormous interest to the world. As the cradle of civilization, it has direct linkages for Christians, Muslims and Jews. But it's also the theatre where all power games are played. In the past, it was American writ that reigned supreme. But that's not the case anymore. Russia and China now both hold significant leverage in this region. Both view themselves as great powers, and their decisions are driven by desires to build legacy for their leaders, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, both of whom speak about returning their countries to their earlier so-called grand and imperial times. This makes Middle East the perfect place where all such lofty or maybe misplaced ambitions could be fulfilled. But the biggest reason both are in the Middle East is because they want to counter America and be the counterbalance to American allies. Putin has spent the last decade shoring up influence by taking advantage of localized conflicts in West Asia. In Libya, Russia exploited the civil war. In Syria, Russia expanded its influence after it supported the Assad regime. And post-US withdrawal from Syria in 2019, Russia has fortified its presence further by helping the Assad government to regain control of a large part of the country. So much so that Russia now operates 2 military bases in Syria. In Egypt, Russia has held joint military drills and helped construct a nuclear plant, which has entrenched its presence further. Now, Putin's biggest competition for influence in West Asia is not America, but the Chinese president, who also fancies himself as the biggest power broker in this region. In August 2023, China brokered rapprochement between bitter rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia, and it's trying to be a neutral party in the Israel-Hamas conflict in the hope that it will be able to resolve the most contentious issue on the planet. In the last decade, China has greatly improved its ties with Iran. That's one of the reasons why it feels it can possibly broker peace between Iran and Israel. And it hopes to emerge as a pole to both US and Russia. China is now Iran's biggest trading partner, buys almost 90% of its oil exports, and provides it the much-needed lifeline to Tehran against US sanctions. Iran is also buying Chinese surveillance equipment to police its people. Using its Belt and Road Initiative, China has built deep economic links with all major economies in the region: Israel, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and of course Iran. So much so that it's now the biggest trading partner for these countries, beating America. And so significant is China's presence in this region that it's now part of every peace effort. After the Damascus strike on 1st of April 2024, US had reached out to China to keep the situation under control. Anthony Blinken told his Chinese counterpart that escalation is not in anyone's interest, and countries should urge Iran not to escalate. But this wasn't the first time. In late 2023, as Houthi rebels attacked commercial shipping lines in Red Sea, US had dialed China to use its leverage to rein in the attacks. Clearly, it's not just America versus Russia, or America versus China. It's even China versus Russia. And in the midst of these power battles, with no major power wanting to cede space to another, this leaves this region perpetually at risk of witnessing flare-ups as nations look to score points and settle long-pending issues.
And finally, among 2024's top 100 influential people in the world, named by Time magazine, is Indian origin chef Asma Khan. And on her unlikely journey from Calcutta tomboy to celebrated London chef, Asma Khan has shattered conventions and created new opportunities for women. My colleague Radhika Iyer met Asma Khan in London, who stands alongside other fellow Indians such as Alia Bhatt, Satya Nadella, among others.
In the heart of central London, one woman with her gang of many strong women is redefining and exhibiting Indianness like never before without a filter. I'm about to meet one of Time magazine's top 100 influential people, Asma Khan.
Heading to the bank with money and a lot of goodwill is Darjeeling Express, a restaurant in the heart of London specializing in Indian Mughlai and Bengali dishes. From kosha mangsho to momos to badami bengan to bapa doi, you'll notice that they're all being made with heart by women. Some who have never been to college or university, some who have ran street businesses in Indian railway stations, and some who are qualified aspiring chefs. Restaurateur and author Asma Khan, a PhD in law, transitioned to being a chef. Her love for food, her upbringing in Kolkata, and her fond memories of stories during mealtime as a child inspired her to use Indian food as a tool to make a bigger statement on female power.
I was driven by the politics of injustice. I was driven by the recognition that in every house in India, it is a woman cooking or the matriarch, but when it came to restaurant, it was men. And why we were seen as unprofessional. Everyone wants our roti when it's free. No one wants to pay for our roti. And I just thought, this is so wrong. I sort of was driven really by deep sense of this mission that, I really want to do something. That it happened to be a restaurant, it happened to be food, was not really the intention. I was studying law. I did a PhD in law. So I was looking at it in a legal way to fight this, to fight injustice. But I really wanted to cook. And a lot of people were like, you're a lawyer and you've got a PhD, why do you want to cook? But I didn't fully think that this would ever happen. Then I thought, why don't I use this way of communicating, of using food as a language of love, but also using it as a battle cry for justice.
Asma is the second daughter to her parents. The 54-year-old says a second daughter is a regret many a time, more than a celebration. With a part of the profits she makes, Asma sends laddus and firecrackers to homes in India where second daughters are born to spread some cheer. While she is Time Magazine's top 100 influential people of the year alongside Alia Bhatt, Satya Nadella among others, loved and celebrated in London, Asma has other plans for herself in the foreseeable future.
This is that scene from Swades. I feel the call to go home. Now, I'm getting emotional about that. At some point I will go. Because there is something very difficult when you live away for a long time. There is something about even the brick and the dust that flies, they recognize you when you're away. Over here, I can be wherever, I can be on any stage, I can have all the accolades, but I don't feel the earth recognizes me.
Radhika Iyer in London, NDTV.
Well, thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. We'll keep tracking the latest developments for you. Do stay tuned.